For me, it all began when I was 7. I saw my first wild bear on a family vacation, and I was hooked. You know when you're 7, you see something, you're curious. You see a dinosaur bone, you want to know all about dinosaurs. So when I saw a bear, I wanted to know all about bears. My father's a journalist, and we had to watch the news every night with supper. And one night, I learned about Alaska's Kodiak bears and how plans were being drawn up to develop their home. So I did what any 7-year-old would do, and I had a lemonade stand. We raised $60, and I wrote letters to President Bush and Prime Minister Mulroney. And a few months later, the Kodiak bear was saved. And I thought, wow, I saved the bear. And of course I realize now that I wasn't the one who turned the tide to that issue, but my voice, coupled with everybody else who made their voice heard in this issue, did save this bear. And that taught me the most important lesson in my life, the power of one. I was involved in a few other issues growing up, and each issue was coincidentally successful. I helped write letters and sent money to protect the Tatsunchini, a river in northwestern British Columbia. That was saved. I organized my grade 5 and 6 classes to have a letter writing campaign to ban lead shot of waterfowl hunting, thus protecting bald eagles. That was also successful. And when I was 13, I learned about another bear, a bear that lives only in our province, the rare white Kermode, or spirit bear. I was amazed that there was a white bear that lived in our province, let alone in the temperate rainforest of our coast. I was even more amazed to find that these bears were threatened. And to threaten these bears' future, I thought was reprehensible. I wanted to get involved and make my voice heard, and so started my involvement in the campaign to save the spirit bear. In a time when few things are constant, one corner of the world offers a counter-argument, the land of the spirit bear. Shrouded in mist and mystery, this area is encompassed by cathedrals of trees, rivers red blood with salmon, and it is really a forgotten gem in a combed-over world. What's more, this untouched paradise is the world's last home to the white spirit bear. It may look like a misplaced polar bear or even an albino, but it's neither. It's a genetically unique subspecies of the black bear that lives only on our coast. 1 in 10 are born white. They carry a double recessive gene. And why they live only in our province, we don't know. First Nation lore says they're a reminder of the last ice age. But no matter what the reasoning is, over the past 100 years, most of their habitat's been developed, leaving one last isolated enclave as their last chance for survival. Today, there are fewer than 400 of these bears remaining, and their last intact habitat also happens to be Western Forest Products Tree Farm License 25. When I began the campaign, I picked up at White Pages. I looked through for anybody who I thought would have a view on this issue, from government officials to biologists to university professors to environmental groups to forest companies to First Nations. I called them, and at the end of the day, I had about 100 pages of notes on this issue from all sides. It was difficult at first. Often I had to write down what I was going to say. But over time, I became more confident and thick-skinned, and I learned the more determined I was to save this area. I found the best chance that I had of making a difference in this issue was to tell people who I was most closest to, my peers, the students at my middle school. So myself and a few others went around to all the English classes in my middle school, Rockridge Middle School, and together we sent 700 letters to then Premier Glenn Clark. And a few months later, we got a letter back. It was a form letter saying, "Thanks for your input, we'll consider it, but no promises." It was a setback, I admit. But I realized at that moment it wasn't that the 700 letters didn't make a difference. It was that it didn't make enough of a difference. We needed to show the Premier that 7,000 young people, that 700,000 young people, millions even, from around the world cared about the future of this bear, and that this should be a priority for our government. So I refocused. I started writing letters to the editor, trying to spread the word. Started talking to other schools, from Girl Guide troops to church groups. You name it, I would speak to them. And soon we had a list of a few hundred kids who wanted to help save this bear. But I realized they wanted more. They wanted to do something more than just write letters. They wanted to belong to something. They wanted to have their voice united behind a purpose. So one day, I gathered a couple of my friends together, and over hamburgers and chocolate cake in my basement, the Spirit Bear Youth Coalition was born. At the time, its idea really was to unite these few hundred students. I had no idea it would grow to the size that it is today. But I realized soon that we still needed something big, something to really move this issue forward. We needed a spokesperson. Every morning before school, I'd get up at 6 and I'd read both the local papers. And it was one morning I read that Prince William was coming to town. And I thought, now there's a young person. He's our age. He seemingly cares about the environment, and he's going to be in Vancouver. What a perfect fit. So I went down to one of his public appearances. Now, try to picture this. On one side, there's the press corps. Then there's a barricade. Then on the other side of the barricade, there's about 300 screaming girls, waving roses saying, "Prince William, will you marry me?" Amidst the 300 girls, there's me, waving a book on the spirit bear. "Prince William, can you come over here and help me save the spirit bear?" Kind of a stunned silence went across the crowd, like, where in the world did that just come from? Which gave me the perfect opportunity to get my voice louder than all the girls and say, "Prince William, will you help me save the spirit bear?" I caught his attention. He came over. He took me inside, and we sat down and talked about the bears for about 5 minutes. He said, "This is great. Best of luck. I'll wish you my best support I can." And I thought at that moment, this is pretty neat. I learned two things. One, this issue, this bear that lived only in our province, and I thought its issue surrounding its future was only a BC issue, wasn't. This was a global issue. Because, like the panda bear that lives only in China, the world cares about its future. The spirit bear may live only in the temperate rainforest of our coast, but everybody around the world would be lesser for having this bear go extinct. The second thing I realized was that as a young person, 15 years old, with no connections in the world, I was just able to speak to the prince. And I thought, if I could speak to the prince, I could speak to anybody. That's what we needed to do. That taught me the second most important lesson in my life, that if you don't ask, you don't get.